So here to talk through this Nanro and Tapa by JinHoo Ahn called 4x4. And it's a really beautiful puzzle that intermixes these two styles. And besides the clear arrangement of the Tapa clues, you'll see this really symmetric arrangement of the regions, which flows really nicely in the puzzle. First places to start is see these symmetric single cell regions must be part of the Nanro. And in recognizing that, this 1-3 clue in the corner is quite limiting from a Tapa sense. We're going to escape from this corner, have to take threes in a row, either up this left edge or down this bottom row. And that means we're going to be intercepting a 1-1-2 clue or a 1-1-3 clue without much space around it. And the 1-1-2 is the one that's going to be too limiting to be possible. And I'll just sort of show you why that's the case. If I come this way, again, the 3 stretch is already blocked off here. I have this cell, I can take one more, but I can't get out. This is isolated. If I take this one here, I also can't get out. And so this doesn't work. We have to come along the bottom edge, get over to here, and hit this 1-1-3 clue. But this still is just as limiting. This has to take the 3 long stretch to the bottom or to the left edge, just as this clue did, so that this stays connected. First thing that forces is that these cells are always shaded. This is always marked off. Even more than that, this 1-1-3 needs to have tight packing around the rest. So all these are marked in. And so we only have these options, this and this. And one way to sort of see this, you can certainly like sketch forward some of the steps, is recognizing that there is a point of disconnection coming up here, coming to the right. So this cell always needs to take this cell to stay connected. Like if this comes along the bottom edge, it's certainly going to the right. If this 3 comes up, the cell is still going to the right. And so now what we have is a group of size 3 touching a group of size 2 or 3. And this is the kind of thinking we're going to come back to a lot in the solve. But this 2 can't grow to be a 3. It would touch to that 3 group. And so this has to stay of just size 2. And you have to escape this way up this channel for this to work out. So this looks like the good starting seed. Before we jump too far away from this 1-3 clue, we still need to make this work out. And this left edge is still just as cramped because of this 1-1-2. So see, like here, if I took this cell, this has the same issue. I can't get out. So this cell is no good. And even thinking around that too, this corner cell is still now very bad once we know we can't come down here. And even taking this path, this is still isolated. You can take 2 cells, but you don't have enough around this 1-3 clue in the current state for this to work. So all these clues are marked off. That means this Nanro region, which must have at least 1 cell filled in, has to take this top one. This is marked off to fulfill the Tapa clue. These 2 get taken for connectivity, but that completes this cell. This now is taken for connectivity, so we've got a group of size 5. That's going to take 3 more cells, so either these or these. So these can't be reached to, and it can't be this pattern. So here's another case where we're going to come just along this left edge or just along the bottom edge for connectivity. So we've hit the same thinking 3 times. And before we sort of resolve that thinking, let's look at this 1-1-2 clue. This is the only pattern left for it. It's got to come up to here. The opposite cell and a 3-3 clue is always then of the same color. We can't have these be the places the 2 gaps are around this clue because this isn't going to be connected. So these corners are also marked in green. And so let's come and now look in this region. This region right now has 2 cells plus a 3rd. So one of these, not both of these, is part of that 3 clue. So this could be a 3. This can now take 2 more cells in white. It can only take one of these up top as well as this down here. So this could be a 4 or this can be a 5. And the thing to note in that look ahead is 5 is going to be really bad if it touches this 5. And this is where I hope you're able to see that if I take these cells, I've now exactly made a 5 near a 5. So again, this is 4 plus 1 more. This right now in the grid is 5 with one of these cells being used for sure. I guess going to like the view of a blue world versus a red world. In one of those worlds, this is now a group of size 5, and that doesn't work. So what that requires is not coming up this way and not coming this way. The only thing that works is taking all these cells to the right. This now can't be a 5. This could be 3 or 4. We don't know which, but we've now connected to this region. And so this is where I'm going to go next. I know this can't be of size 5. Right now it's of size 3, but it can't stay of size 3 because it's not connected to anything else. And this region can't be shaded as many as 7 cells. This can only be shaded up to 6 cells. Right now I know this is a 4 or a 6. And we're now going to intercept some Tapa thinking to know which of those it can be. In order for this to be a 4, I can only take 1 more cell around this clue, but notice that this will always have the cells at least 2 apart when they're marked off. So if I do this, I can't also shade off this clue or shade off this clue. So these are all options, but the most I can shade off around this 2-4 clue is 1 cell. in this group of 3. So this will always contain at least 2 more, which means it's going to grow to be maybe size 5, but we said it can't be 5 because of what it touches. This is always a group of size 6. How can this region get filled in then? I can take one of these cells, that gets me to 4, and then I take this, and that's now as large as 6. So that's how the world splits. This 2-4 clue now is the right place to be focusing, and it doesn't have a lot of options for it. This is one option for it, where this is going to extend along the bottom, and the other option for it is this. And in both of those, notice this cell is green. I guess a different way of thinking, if this is shaded off, this cell and this cell aren't available to be shaded off, but we can mark these off. And now it might be useful to look across these choices and sort of see how we can make certain things work. And again, like I mean this cell here to be in green right now. I think a key thing to note is how are we going to make this 4 work out? And the reality is we're going to probably have to take a cell in this group, and we're also going to have it still reach and touch to these cells. So notice like in this red situation, these cells are isolated and have to come over to the 4 somehow to make this work. And notice that if it only comes along the bottom, right now I'm tracking like either what's in blue, so like when this is marked off, if this is how it connects, notice I can no longer take more, and this doesn't work. And if this is red, then this is also how it is, and that forms an issue. And so only coming along the bottom is a problem. And so this cell can never be green is one way to think about it. But I do still have to come up this edge somewhat, and this has an X in it. One of these 2 cells is shaded, so I just have to come this way up through the set. And in marking those off, I should see I now only can reach into this 4 by taking this cell. That puts in these. It now forces this shading because of the 2x2 rule, which means red in this case is what was in the Nanro, and blue is what was shaded. This 4 clue is fulfilled. Before I jump too far, that cell must now be the other one in green to make this group as large as 6. Let me just put 6 in these cells so it's more clear when we're coming through what are some issues. This group is touching a 3, it's touching a 6, so this can be a 4 or a 5. Again, it can't be a 7 because I can't take both of these cells. But around this 2-4 clue, the same kind of thinking will manifest as before. I can only have one of these shaded off. And notice it's going to have to be one of the ones from the Nanro rule in this cell or this cell. This cell being shaded off would mark both these in, and I can't have the 2x2 working. So I know this is green. I also know one of these will be green. That means this group must be at least size 5, but it can't be 6. So I can shade that one off because this or this will be the 5th cell. This is so key because it makes this 2-4 work right away. So hopefully you see how you get to that logic. That puts in this pattern. I now have a 3 being filled in. It's growing larger here. This is size 2, but not connected to the rest of the grid yet, so it must grow larger, but it's got to go all the way from 2 up to 4 because it can't stop at 3 because it's touching to that. So it now is as large as 4. Putting in these cells here, made a 2x2 rule appear. That puts this in, marks this off, puts these in. Connectivity is now still going to come to bear. This 5 group has to come up and take this position. And that finishes the 4 group here. Connectivity now forces taking this cell. So this is now a region of size 4 touching a 4. It could grow to 5, but it's touching 5. It has to grow all the way to size 6. And in doing that, it's marking off this cell by a 2x2 rule, puts in these, marks in these. We've got pretty steady progress. And now a case where we've got a few things to think about. First thing I'm seeing is probably actually up here. And we didn't look at this at the start of the puzzle, but one of the things, if you had looked in the space, you might have observed is if you don't take one of these cells into these regions, the 5 clue is enough space to wrap around but not come back into this region. So it's really critical in that case to still have this cell accessible. At this stage of this puzzle with the 5 as we have it marked, what we can say is we always have to reach down to it or we don't get anything in this region. But in reaching down to it, this has to be a 2 or a 3, which means we keep reaching down into it. That means that it's taking this cell, it's never taking this cell, and we've got a start of how this works. And what we can also see is there's a potential place of disconnection here. I can come along the top like so, but that marks this off, and if I do take this cell, I can't come all the way along the top, and so I can't reach around this clue to stay connected. So I now always have to take this cell for this group in the bottom to have this channel or this channel because what I can't do is like this in some kind of way. So hopefully it's clear what I'm trying to do, but there's a connectivity pinch point right here. And this will continue to play out as actually work around like this 5 clue and other clues. We're going to have connectivity issues working along the side. Before we do more around that, though, I want to come back to this 3-3 clue, which we hadn't looked at, but you can do some more progress in. That's because it has a tension with this 2-2 clue, which is we now have a stage where, like in the red view of the world, let me mark that in fully, where these blue groups are shaded in, connectivity is going to be forced to use this cell, and it's going to have to still have a room to get around this clue. So let me mark this more in color so it's more clear. This is a pattern just like we had down here with this 3 and this 2. I now have a clue that has to take more than 2 cells. I have to take 4 cells this direction or 3 cells this direction to get connected. Instead, I can only do this or only do this, and I'm disconnected. And so this 3-3 has to be vertical, not horizontal, for this to work out. That means red is what's not true. That puts then this is a 2, this is a 3. I come now back to the same kind of thinking with this 5 corner clue as I had over here. If I don't take this cell and only come this way, I don't reach back into this corner. So I do have to take at least 1 cell here. Notice this region can be a 1 or a 2. It can't be a 3, so I never reach over to here, and that means this 5 clue has to extend at least these to work out. It can't reach over to this cell. This group is going to have to be larger than size 3, so this is a 4, 5, or 6. Let's think about this 2-2 clue, and now with all these cells shaded, the first thing is the cell can't be taken. That's a pretty key thing to see because it now breaks apart how the 2-2 goes. Notice there's an effective X along this edge because I can't take both of these cells. So I have one of the 2's down here and the other 2 up top, so I always actually take this cell. This may not be the more key thing to see, but it's something you can see right now. I think the more interesting one is down here. So I'm only taking 2 of these cells. And one of the options is here. This isn't an option, and the other option is here. And the reason this isn't an option is from connectivity. There's a really sneaky reason this isn't an option. What it does is it marks these cells off, and it again is going to mean this region is touching this region, but notice they're of the same size. They're both 4s right now. And so across these 3 options down below, this is the only one that works. It marks this cell off, marks this cell off. This then can't be reached. So this is a group of size 3. This is a group of size 5 in total. This for connectivity has to extend 1 more up. That now forces this cell to be taken, forces this cell off. This now doesn't want to grow to be a group of size 5. It needs to take, though, at least one of these cells around the 6. So this is a group of size 4 or 6. Can we resolve which it is? Well, we still have actually to fulfill this 2-2 clue. That puts this in, marks this off. If this is off, all of these cells are in around the 6 clue. That marks this cell off, marks this cell off, finishes the 5 this way. So this now isn't a 4, and it can't be a 5 because it touches 1. So this is a size 6. That connects over to here. That means this group isn't a size 6, but it also is no longer able to be a size 4. So it's completed as a 5. That marks this in. That forces this around the 5 clue to finish it. This 6 only works if this is shaded off, so we have a 2 touching this 1. That all looks good. This group is now a 4 or a 5. Can't grow to be as large as 6. Notice we've got the 1 around this 4 clue. It's going to be one of these cells. So this actually can't be a 4. This is a 5, but we can never take this cell. And so last step in this puzzle can be seeing how do I fill in this 1 clue and make this work. Notice if I fill in this and shade this off, I now have to come around the top for this to work. And we already talked about how I can't connect around this edge. That takes 6 cells. So this is marked off. This is marked in. These cells are marked in for connection. And this last shaded cell will mark our puzzle is done. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video and appreciate some of the nuance of JinHoo's puzzle. One of the things that really he did, which the best puzzle makers do, is just repeat the same kind of thinking several times in the grid. So how these 3s into 2s as Tapa clues force the connection, and then even like here into this 3. We saw a lot of those seeds at the start, and even then appearing again along this edge. But most of the middle of this puzzle was about 5s and 6s and 5s and 6s in these big region shapes. They would have to grow large enough to stay connected, so rarely would 3 be possible except in this one spot. But as we'd like debate 4 versus 6, we'd see this has to be 6 because of like how we fill this clue. Then looking at this clue, because of how we have to fill it in, it can't be 3 or 4. It can't be as large as 6 because it's touching 1, so it has to be 5, and so forth. A lot of really great ways the Nanro played out in the rest of the puzzle. So It blended the two styles, used the logic a lot from both of the styles, and that's the best thing you want to see in a variation. Not that it's used once and the main rules apply throughout the puzzle. This is actually a real blend that forced both Nanro and Tapa look ahead thinking. It also made it a true Saturday puzzle in difficulty. But hopefully you appreciated how I went through this grid and learned something through the solve, and we'll see you again soon.